Okay, welcome everybody. We're having quite a lot of happenings at the moment, and this full moon that we've just gone through is bringing a lot of energy, helping positive changes. We need to hold the space, come into ourselves, ready for this meeting today. So if you just notice your own breathing, notice how you're feeling while you're actually here in this meeting. Okay. Whatever's happening elsewhere isn't where we are now. We are now in this moment. So notice where you're sitting, what's happening with your feet, what's happening with the rest of your body. Allow yourself to create a smile within yourself. And you might notice that coming from the heart center. So totally unconditional love for whatever we're going through, and knowing that we are meant to be together today at this point in time, and we're here to help everybody else and the whole of the world, the universes, because whatever happens with us ripples out. So if you think of a butterfly flying and changing the weather, every thought that we have is a vibration that goes out. And when we can focus on the positive thoughts, and even when things are happening that are quite challenging, just notice what's happening, take yourself back to your breath, back to that heart center of totally unconditional love. And it might mean that you're going to positively assert. So just because we're in this place doesn't mean that we're going to allow people to do whatever else they wish to do. And sometimes people will say to me, well, I thought you were spiritual, Julie. And well, I am, but that doesn't mean you're going to tread all over me. So just allow that caterpillar to go into the chrysalis, change into the butterfly, keep vibrating out, and changing the world in positive ways, changing our daily lives. And we have free will, so we can choose what we do with our every thought even. And when you realize that every thought is affecting everybody else, notice what's happening, look after yourself enough, but also then you can be there to look after other people as well. Okay, just take 3 more breaths. And then come into the now and this meeting. Okay, thank you. Right, now I've been asked to chair the meeting today, and I'm just going to share, before we start going around the other people in the meeting, some of what's been happening in my life and that is rippling out to others. And it feels right what I'm doing, and that is the only reason I do whatever I do these days. But I also know sometimes things are given to us, like yesterday, as I was travelling about, I was going to a meeting, knew the meeting's down in that community centre. There was a pub on the corner. I needed to have something to eat. I went into that pub, they didn't serve any food. Asked the locals, can you recommend somewhere? They recommended somewhere that was 10 minutes away, which might not sound long, but in the circumstances I was in, I was like, am I really going to go that far? I could have just gone to my computer, on my phone and Googled somewhere, but I wanted to go with those local people's recommendation because they knew places that are open. I might have tried to go somewhere that was much closer and got there and found it was closed. And they were so lovely in the pub. I didn't even stay and have a drink or anything. They just recommended somewhere and I took their recommendation. And then we went to a meeting. So I met up with Rachel and some of her family and friend, and I've met the friend before. And I know we honour each other as to what's happening in our lives. And so we went to the meeting, And as a result of that, I've actually stepped myself forwards today and chosen to be an agent for the person that's putting himself forwards as a candidate for the East Midlands Regional Mayor. I'm not joining Reform UK, which is the party that he's part of. I'm still getting to know them. But from what I've seen and spoken to him, I spoke to him one-to-one. So he's called Alan Graves, and he's Derby City Mayor at the moment. And from what, even the first conversation I had with him on Sunday for 10 minutes, which he just rang me sort of quite spontaneously, I knew that what I'd asked him and how he'd responded, I was happy with. And when I've mentioned Reform UK to some people, they've been quite about it. And I thought, no, I need to just get to know these people in my way. I've already got to know some of the other Reform UK people through doing delivering in Northwest Leicestershire for Andrew Bridgen. Every single person, particularly in the mainstream, if they're making headway, there's certain things that people could say adversely about them. And we need to look beyond any of those adverse comments. And if we genuinely connect with someone, we can get to know, how do I feel about this? And we might not agree with everything that they state, but we're allowed to discuss. And that's where we are today. And so I have stepped forwards as an agent for Alan Graves. So at Mansfield District Council, when they do the electoral count, I will be allowed to be there. And I've partly done that because, yes, I do support him and what he's doing, but I want to be there to create a good energy in that electoral count. And so it might not mean much to people as to why does Julie need to be at the electoral count. I know when I went last year that just my energy being there stopped certain people being with each other. And they weren't used to people just sort of talking and being really genuinely connecting. So that's where I am at the moment, and I don't know where it's going to take me. I'm glad I had the 2 meetings yesterday that I did have to get to know Alan even more and some of the people working with him. And it feels right what I'm doing. If ever it doesn't feel right, then I won't do it. I've had somebody else locally in Mansfield who is putting themselves forward as a complete independent, and he actually turns out he's a nephew of someone I know, but she didn't realise he was putting himself forwards until she actually met him as he was giving leaflets out. There's certain things that I don't necessarily agree with him on. Most of the stuff I do, and I know he's there genuinely wanting to do good for Mansfield, but I don't feel he's got as much understanding as he needs to be at the moment. But hopefully I'll support him with that as well. So I'm going to come to Rachel first, and we'll go with each person that's on the call at the moment. And if you want to update us, and then if we want any more updating from me later, it might come in. Okay, Rachel.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. So the progression that happened for me was that after I did the East Midlands Mayor video, how the East Midlands Mayor could really F up your life, someone, I think, was it you, Julie, or someone sent the Philip Rose video, which was filmed back in 2023. And I contacted him through the Derby Council website and sent him my video and said, I've watched yours and we are chiming. So I had a conversation with him, and then I got the call, well, you passed me Alan Graves' number, Julie, that you'd spoken to him. Now, Alan Graves wasn't actually in the frame for East Midlands Mayor, but they're actually very astute Reform, because it's like they're going where the publicity is and they want to get on ballot papers to spread the word about, like, essentially essentially they are an umbrella party, like a bit like Freedom Alliance was, a bit like we had originally planned to be, where they don't have a whip, and basically as long as you're broadly aligned to the party, they're a kind of umbrella for other people who would be independents otherwise. And the good thing is they have got some money, resources. So Alan is being funded by their pot of money. And he is quite interesting. And I think we learned a huge amount from him, because he's not a career politician. He's just someone like us who was so pissed off with the system that he decided to get into politics. He actually started out with Labour and went through their training program and realized what how kind of ruthless activists Labour are, and he switched to Reform. And so he is part of a small contingent within Derby Council, which are all Reform, and they're very much like the Freedom Alliances, you know, but kind of relics out of UKIP, who are angry old men, really. I don't want to be derogatory, but it's kind of like that. And just wanting to, they were originally standing against EU, and now obviously they're standing against World Economic Forum, which is a even worse beast than the EU beast that they were anti before, right? So he was basically saying that that he just doesn't go in. He has been jabbed, for example. He just doesn't go into subjects which are upsetting for people. He just sticks to mainstream stuff. So he was telling us that the whole of the East Midlands Mayor Combined County Authority was completely railroaded through Derby Council. The councillors weren't allowed to have a debate. They weren't allowed to speak about it. He wasn't mayor at the time. And and even though there was a public consultation which found, even though it was a tiny group of people, everyone said they didn't want it, it was ignored, and it was bulldozed through by Labour and Conservative because they were whipped to agree to it. And so that's why Philip Rose spoke out a year ago. He made his video. And so Alan Graves is now standing on an I do not consent like message. And it's a great picture of him with a black gaffer tape over his mouth. I was gagged. I'm the candidate they didn't want you to hear from. And it's quite funny, actually, what he's done. And he's actually a really nice guy. Now, he was saying that they don't think that the turnout is going to be much more than 20% for these elections. And he was saying he's learned a lot. He doesn't know anything about politics, and he's learned a lot on the job through just managing to get voted in as a councillor. And the reason why he managed to get voted in as mayor is because Labour won Derby Council. Originally, it was Conservative, and then Labour got the majority of seats, but Labour got the most seats, but they didn't have a majority. They were short by one seat. And because Labour was so hated within the chamber, and because he's actually quite a nice guy, he managed to corral a sort of uprising against Labour, and they all voted him in as the mayor, and he won by one vote, and the whole of Labour walked out, apparently. It sounds quite hilarious. So I think he's getting quite good at sort of like working the system. But he was saying that because I was saying, he said that only 20% would turn out. And I said, from a marketing point of view, for me, like going after the 80% who don't bother has to be the biggest section of people. And his strategy is go after the 20% who do vote and convince them to change their mind. And he said he'd got hold of something called the marked electoral register, which is basically everyone who's marked off as voting. And that's how he won his seat, is he went through everyone who did vote, and he went round to their houses and he persuaded them to vote for him. And he said he basically asked them, what is your biggest beef with the local council? And he listened, and then he basically said that he would stand as a voice for that concern. And that's how he won his seat. It was very interesting listening to him. So he said that the 80% who don't bother to vote are very difficult to convert. But I don't believe that, actually. I having looked at those electoral commission statistics, there are a lot of people who didn't get time or forgot to vote. So there's a lot of people who are on the electoral register who, if they have sufficient motivation, will make a point and will turn up. So from my point of view, my position now is for the people who aren't going to bother, stimulate them to not remain silent and to say, I do not consent. And those who are going to bother, alert them to Alan. Those who do want to vote for a candidate, alert them to Alan. He's going to be in the booklet. So it's like both sides of the coin. Now, it's really good that you're at the count, Julie. Now, Edward, who is standing as MP for Derbyshire Dales, so essentially against me, he's the Reform candidate. I met him last night and he's like, we need to meet for lunch, Rachel. But I'm actually, I'm sure they're going to convince me to try not to stand. But I think it's really good that you're at the count, Julie, and I'm going to try and get into the count because I want to see the spoilt ballots. That's what I'm interested in looking, because then they're largely ignored. They're largely just a handful in a tray that's ignored. Personally, I want to see how many ballots are spoiled, because to me, that is a deal breaker. Because, so just to complete on the thing that Simon said about if he wins, or as we were saying to him, when you win, that he needs to immediately resign. Well, his strategy, because we asked him about that, like, when you win, are you going to immediately resign? And he said that what's happened is that the government has put in place already the legal structure and the administrative civil servant structure to slot the mayor into. So they've already appointed an interim executive, civil servants, 4 officers, 1 in every council, not just a room, but a whole staff. This is a huge layer of extra government. It's going to cost £10 million a year. It's outrageous. And they've put in, so the government have dictated and already staffed this and already appointed an interim chief executive to run the combined county authority, can you believe? So his first thing is to sack all those people. And secondly, to appoint a legal team to dismantle the legislation. And that's how he's planning to collapse it. And I didn't actually ask him, because I said, how much are you going to get paid? And they were thinking, they didn't know. No one knows what the mayor's going to be paid. Apparently it hasn't been declared, but he was thinking it's £100,000 a year job. And I didn't actually ask him, will you draw the salary or blah, blah, blah. Maybe that's a question for later. But it's quite interesting to actually sit and really listen. And I think that he's a nice guy, and I think he's got integrity. I really do. So it was very fascinating to go and to just, and then there was a talk last night about direct democracy through referendums. A guy was talking about Switzerland and how they run things. It's very fascinating, and it's exactly like democracy by the people. So if 1%, a bit like we have with when someone's got an issue and you put a petition into Parliament, in Switzerland, if you can get 1% of the electorate, whether it's the ward or the council, county council, or your constituency or the country, if you can get 1% of the people to back you, you can get a referendum on it. And the people decide, and then it's enshrined in legislation. So it's forget all this petitions and, oh, the House might listen to your petition or might not. It literally, the people can instigate a referendum on any subject, even if it's like the color of the bins. And if you can get 1% of people to back your referendum, then the people decide, and then it's enshrined in law. And so actually, you don't need a government. It was really fascinating to hear that guy talk. So I learned a lot yesterday, and I really left with this feeling that we have to keep an open mind and not go into this judgmental cynicism without listening and without fully hearing someone and asking questions and getting comfortable with the people, because otherwise we're just going to shoot ourselves in the foot, because the real enemy is not Andrew Bridgen or Reform or Richard Tice or Nigel Farage. The real enemy here is the established political red and blue Punch and Judy show, which has got it's locked down the whole of the system. That's where we need to be aiming our focus, and we need to put aside our differences and unite to break this system. That I truly believe that. And I am not doing it for any personal gain, ego. I don't care if I'm elected or not. I'm there to pattern interrupt, and I'm there to be a positive force for transformational change in whatever shape or form that is. I'm not particularly interested in being a business advisor on some frickin' combined county authority. I'm happy to give my opinion. And it was really interesting that Alan had taken on board what I'd said about if I was mayor, I would put all the money into local community projects decided by the people and spend all the money with local independent businesses. Absolutely. Like, that's what we should be. And he was saying he was taking that on board for everything that the council did. And they should be. Why not? Why wouldn't you do that? Why would you spend with bloody China if you can spend with local businesses? It seems like common sense to me. So it's really interesting. Even just doing that one video has created a shift, and a shift in people's thinking. And it was really beautiful to be welcomed last night by that group. Like, we were welcomed in, and it was really sweet, actually. And I really feel like, in just our little way, that little butterfly flapping wings, we're creating a little change, and we are creating change. And that felt really good to me. So thanks, Julie. And thank you for the intro to Alan, and for coming yesterday, and for our sort of solidarity in that meeting. It was very positive. I learned a huge amount. And yeah, so
Thank you,
that's
Rachel.
my share.
And this is where, if ever we think we know everything, that's exactly the people that don't. And I'm so glad that I was there to experience both meetings, because we had a meeting in the afternoon with Alan and one of the other councillors called Tim. And then we went and had a bit of time separately. And then we went to the evening meeting in the community centre with some other people, including Alan. And what I liked about Alan and his delivery, as he was talking, he wasn't just doing a script. He was using his own words, and you could tell he is genuine in what he's saying. And some of the examples he gave us were so grounded, it was really helpful. And I think I'm glad I went, so that Rachel had got my support as well. But also I'm very glad that Rachel went, because then what I've experienced, she was there to experience it as well. So then we've got that mutual support, and we'll all have seen things and experienced it differently. So thank you.
Interesting that none of them like Richard Tice, and none of them really like Farage. But they were all there because they hated the WEF. They all had their like badges. I love CO2. It was quite sweet, actually.
Yeah. Right. Thank you very much, Rachel. So Simon, I'm going to come to you. Any comments that you'd like to make? And I know you've had experience before as a councillor, and I know that will have been significant for you to influence you in how you're feeling now and steps forwards. So anyway, Simon.
Well, I made my position clear. I am listening. I mean, I'm not closed-minded to what you're saying. I don't believe I'm cynical. I believe I'm skeptical. I think there's a huge difference. But I think the most significant thing reading through some of the stuff is where in some of the blurb about his plans, he said, "I will try." It sounds like the system is so entrenched that I'm increasingly of a mind that I'm aligning myself and with efforts which are just about building the alternative, because I just find that politics in all its forms is just draining.
Yeah, but also, don't you find that when they say "I will do," quite often those are the things that don't happen, whereas when people say "I will try," and when we're there and we can keep reminding, and we can just keep hoping and praying that that is where he will be enabled to go.
Maybe, like I said, I'm listening, Julie.
Yeah, so I know on a comment earlier, I said, I feel as though we need to be within as well as outside of what's happening to create that whole And yes, we're all after a new system, aren't we?
I mean, the only thing I would add is if you want to look into council procurement and supporting local businesses, the Preston model's been going for 10 years. They haven't really made any major progress. They had exactly the same ideas. You want to take, are you familiar with the Preston model?
I'm not personally, no.
Take a look.
But this is where, when we get to that 100th monkey equivalent, you need to get a certain amount, and it's not a majority as such, but that ripples out, and that vibration. If I think what I would have expected life to be, now I'm nearly 64 this year, and when I was a child and teenager and young adult even, life was so much easier and people were actually thriving much more. And then things had already started to sort of change a bit as I became an adult, but I don't know if that's because of me becoming an adult that I realised. And we do know that these things have been going on for centuries, not only decades, but significant stuff for decades.
Well, the only other thing I would add is you are effectively supporting the Reform Party one way or another. And, you know, I have a huge problem with what's at the heart of their manifesto. They are a political party with a manifesto, and they will want most people to agree with that. There'll only be a certain amount of freedom of speech within the party. And they're very much aligned with economic growth and, you know, infinite growth on a finite planet. Sooner or later, we're going to realise that that just doesn't work.
Yeah. But on that level, if you think of, you are still choosing to live in the United Kingdom, so you are in effect allowing what is happening and agreeing to that sufficiently to stay living here. So yes, I know, and that's why I'm choosing at the moment not to join Reform UK as a member, but I am standing so I can go to that electoral count, and I am going to be promoting Alan Graves from what I've seen so far of him. And obviously it's early days and only time will tell. I know when I married my husband to be, my marriage day was the best day in my life. And now I'm divorced, and I know I learned a lot through that marriage. And I won't say I regret it, but there were certain things could we have done differently. And so we just
I just get a sense it's like you're being sucked into the mainstream a wee bit.
Well, yeah, that's what, and that's why it's good that we're sharing, particularly on the Beacons Telegram group, and to be able to share with this, because then people, if you really see concerns that you need to voice to us, you will do. And even what you've said on our group today has helped me to take stock of, because I was sort of wondering, shall I put myself forward as an agent for him? And I wasn't sure yesterday, but even that discussion that we've had today has helped me to realise that actually, yes, I want to do that, partly to support him, but also partly to make sure that Mansfield District Council know I am not off that radar. I am still here for the people.
Just the question, Julie, if he were to resign immediately, would all that layer of bureaucracy they put in place become obsolete until they found a new mayor or had another election? If he was to resign and say, this is why I've resigned, because there's all these people, they've all been put in place in advance without any consultation. I want to make it perfectly clear that my goal is to get rid of them, and this I feel is the best way to accelerate that ambition.
His plan is not to resign. His plan is not to resign. His plan is to collapse the authority.
But Simon, I think you know enough about the establishment. They've already put these things in place.
Yeah.
And so they've not only just built a scaffolding, they have literally built and put those people in place.
But if he were to resign, would he effectively accelerate that process?
His plan, right, I want to clarify on this. And I also want to say, Simon, I am absolutely insulted that you are saying that. I find it incredibly patronizing that you are projecting that we are being sucked into the mainstream. I would say absolutely we are not. We have been open. We have held the space of listening and to not go into judgment, cynicism, or whatever you want to call it, skepticism, holding a healthy space of listening and being open. And we have come to the conclusion that for the 20, this is my conclusion, for the 20% who are going to vote, no matter what, persuade them to vote for him. For the 80% who aren't going to bother to vote, get them to spoil their paper. And it helps to have the offer to be at the ballot, to be at the count. That is precious. It's a precious offer that was made, because to be at the count, you get to witness what is written on those ballot papers. That's important to me, and I want to get into that count as well. Now, Edward's been elected as sub-agent for Alan in Derbyshire Dales, but that doesn't mean to say necessarily I can't get involved in the count, because I want to actually see for my own eyes, not just how many are in there, but what is written on those papers. But back to Alan, if he resigns on day one, he is essentially, if you resign, it's like out of the door. If you resign from you're out of the door. If he's in the position, he can then remove the interim chief executive. He can sack all of the staff. You know, these are things, he has the power of veto, and he will have the people's mandate. So he can dismantle the scaffolding that's been built. So it's not, so resigning on day one is strategically not actually a very good idea. It's far more powerful for him to go into those structures which have been built and to actually remove them, collapse them, and legally collapse the legislation which has created them, to free the people, because he would have the people's mandate and the power of veto. And I think, I was listening to him, and it, you know, from what I know about corporations and law, and it actually, it's like, yeah, actually, I really see. And I don't know if he's going to claim any salary, but if he does, if he is paid for that role and it's a full-time role, you know, why not be rewarded for his time and his effort and his expertise in doing it? Why should we deprive someone?
I found it really interesting that when Rachel was doing the video with him and I was recording it for them, when she finished the video, and she did say for people to vote for Alan Graves, but she didn't just say everybody's got to. She really did put it as the different alternatives of vote for him, spoil your ballot paper, and do a positive step rather than just not doing anything. And the way he was when she said that, because he didn't know what she was going to say, he was very accepting, and he didn't come back and say, yes, but they need to vote for me. He just accepted the way that Rachel wanted to present it. So if you watch that video again towards the end, hopefully you'll get that energy of where it's all coming from. But anyway, anything else you wanted to say, Simon?
Only that what I did say was I get the feeling, if I can't express that, then I'm not in a safe place, am I?
Yeah. Well, you've expressed it, and thank you for saying that. And as I said before, it's when I've had things in life that have happened, and sometimes it's for people to say something like that for me to know better where I actually stand. And the discussion you've had this morning and even now has helped me to know what feels right for me. And everybody's got their own life journey. Yeah.
And safe space cuts both ways. Doesn't mean to say that you get to say what you want, but everyone else has to zip it and shut up and not actually have the right of reply. Safe space does not mean you get to say what you want and I can't say what I want. If we have a true safe space, all voices are welcome, no matter whether they are heated or contradictory. Safe space is an open forum where we can all speak and fully express ourselves. That to me is a safe space.
Yeah. Simon, do you want to say anything on that one, or shall I move to Roger?
There's a world of difference between expressing your opinion and personally attacking somebody.
Simon, please don't go into victim persecutor.
I'm not.
I'm just
defending myself because your nature is to go onto the attack.
I can see it.
Doesn't agree with
like
you.
I can see it from a mile off. This is a persecutor victim dynamic.
Bollocks.
Stop it.
So what we will do is we will go to Roger now for what he would like to express. Okay, and please just hold the space, and You can both mute yourselves while Roger speaks, please.
Well, hello everybody. It's nice to know that there's a lot of dynamic thought going on with regard to this this mayor appointment. I'm just basically here in York on my own, a spectator of what's going on. I can't really participate in it, but it's just interesting to listen to the way you're handling things. And it seems to me that you're handling things in the right way and bobbing about and weaving, ducking and weaving where you have to. You know, I think that's the way to go. Anyway, as a member of the local movement at the local pub here, the Beagle, I did a talk, and a lot of people were interested in Chris Goverdale's idea of withholding council tax. You know, that is to put it into trust. So, but one of my little tribe who was there introduced a scheme which originates in America. And I'll show you. Can you see that?
I can see a bit of a something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, okay. Well, you don't have to read it all now. I
Right.
just want you to, I'm moving it about so
Mhm.
you can see physically what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I can tell you it's called a goldback, which is obviously a play on words of the greenback. And this goldback actually contains 1,000th of a troy ounce of gold, you know, pure gold. So that is money. That's real money. And the man who was promoting it here in this York area has spent some of it in shops around here. So people, you know, some people are embracing the idea, and I don't know, maybe it'll take off, maybe it won't. But there was a great deal of discussion with regard to this at the talk that I gave. There weren't so many people there. There was probably 15 people there, but I don't think numbers really count, to be honest. It's more the interest of those people who come, which is important. And they
And
were
that's where,
interested in
Roger, it's really important because each of those people will go out and talk to other people. So
well,
you never know the
exactly,
impact you've had. Yeah, yeah. So that
exactly. And
actual voucher that you've got is how much is it worth? You know, can we put a monetary term to it in pounds and pence or anything?
I don't know how Rachel got the was ready with the answer to that, but she's just put there at £1.60, and that's what it's worth at the moment. But of course, that will vary from day to day. Yeah, and she's also put on one troy ounce at the moment is 1,600. Was that pounds or dollars? I didn't catch that.
I think she put pounds. Yeah.
Yeah, so a quarter of a troy ounce is £400. So one troy ounce is 1,600. So 1,000th of a troy ounce would be £1.60.
Yeah, well,
I don't
that's
know how much that
what
is in dollars, probably $2.
yeah. So and it can actually be processed to get the gold out of it if required. But the good thing about this is that it beats inflation because gold always, or it has historically shown that it keeps its value, and in fact probably could increase in value. So I'm
And
only just
also it
sharing
has
that as
various health benefits, you know. So even carrying that about is much more healthy than carrying about the notes or the plasticky type things that we've got now. So I know if someone's got a sty on their eye, they can use gold to rub it with gently, and it helps the sty to disappear. And I've experienced someone do that. So yeah, it has health benefits. Yeah.
well, that's useful to know.
Mm.
Yeah.
So we can
Um,
skin with it.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's where we need to be with health and with monetary system or whatever we're going to go towards. But it's interesting that you've got that as a new form of exchange, and it reminds me of the chrysalis vouchers that we've got to help local projects and things like that that we're starting to develop. So thank you.
Yeah. So what's Rachel put here?
So gold is a conduit to connect to source.
Hence why crowns and Julius Caesar wore like a golden, laurels and gold worn on the head to help connect to source.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why all of the Incas and Egyptians, they all wore gold, like and Hindu, all the golden jewelry is to help to connect. It's like a conductor to higher dimensions.
So it's to help spiritual connection.
Yeah, because we're all spiritual beings. So yeah, we're just having this quite dense physical experience. It feels quite dense at times, doesn't it? Anyway, is that all you want to say, Roger? And then we can go to Lynn.
Well, just wanted to say I'm looking forward to Rachel coming to the same pub on next Wednesday, and anybody else who can make it there. It'll be nice to see Rachel in the flesh. That'll be nice.
Yeah.
Rather than just virtually all the time.
And it does make so much difference having proper physical meetups that you can talk properly. And that's what I really enjoyed of yesterday, of getting to that Derby City Council building, finding my way in, and then having this real person, well, two people to talk to, and then Rachel arrived as well, and then we walked through the building, and it was an interesting energy, I will say, of the building. But just to be in a physical meeting together is so much different to even doing these Zoom calls. But if it wasn't for this technology, we probably wouldn't even know each other, would we? So yeah.
Well, that's right. I mean, it's a utility.
Yeah.
And we just regard it as that.
Yeah. And we do know that it changes the energy of how we interact as well. Right. So anything else, Roger? And then I'll go to Lynn.
You can go to Lynn now.
Thank you very much. Okay, Lynn. How are you feeling now? Because I know you've not been feeling 100%.
Shaky.
Right.
Yeah, not good. It's been we were totally knocked out.
Right.
So
well, thank you for joining us today, because I know you've
I
got
was I really wanted to come yesterday. And not that I had the details, but it was not a good idea, to be honest. Oh, excuse me. I'm gonna have a cough. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what's going on. Feels a little bit like I don't know, some sort of weird poisoning, but we've all got it. We've all this family. It's like a plague pit here.
Yeah. Yeah, and the energy that we've had this last month has been definitely bringing things to the fore for us to process.
Maybe it's just having a good clear out. Maybe it's having the whole body clear out, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, so what else would you like to say about everything we've said, or anything else?
Yeah, I've got a list of stuff actually on here. So yeah, a lot of that moon energy is still around, isn't it? And the moon and eclipse energies around. I could Simon and Rachel, love you both, but you were both like that, so odds, and that's like, that's not what she said, that's not what you meant, didn't mean it like that. Anyway, but let's carry on to the next bit. So Leah, love the currency, Roger. I like the look of that note. That's a pretty note. It's got everything you want in a currency if you're going to go down the currency route, actual value and everything. So the Swiss model referendum, first of all, I'm going to say it's fine, but there has to be always a proviso that it doesn't affect people's inalienable rights.
Yeah. Have you been able to read the photo that I put on the beacons?
I did. I think we just always have to be really careful with that it's like 1% can make this thing happen. It cannot become dictatorship by the masses. it can't be that. I think democracy is a bit of an old concept that's probably had its day. I'm all for anarchy myself. And so the next thing is, oh God, Julie, oh you really pulled my strings there. Consenting by living here. No, it's my flipping home. It's not that at all. I live here. I have inalienable rights to live here. It's so by staying here I don't see that as consenting to the nonsense at all, or consenting to this society. I mean, yeah, I could run away from it, but this is mine. This is my patch of England. I have rights here, and they don't have rights to impose it over me, just because they've won some crappy election that's fixed anyway to that favors them. This is definitely something that I feel is our right. This is our land.
But that's why we're all here, Lynn, isn't it? And that's why we continue to
it's to
engage
stop
with
people
each other.
imposing their will over us, and so that we can just be sovereign beings, and we can support our own communities and families and everything. I don't see staying here in this country as being in any way consenting to the government that I've inherited, that I didn't have any say about when I came into this life or anything like that. It was nothing to do with me. It was there. And I don't.
Even when you think how gifted we've been to be in the different types of community we are, because your village that you live in is very different to where I live, which is very different to where Rachel lives, which is very different to where Roger lives, and very different to where Simon lives. And so we're bringing that multitude of different needs and life experiences, and that's why we're here together, isn't it?
I'm totally. I'm just putting it out there that I do not see living in England as consenting to the system in any way, or consenting to being ruled, or consenting to a royal family, or in any way consenting. I don't.
But we haven't even realised how much we're imposed.
No, I couldn't have said this. I couldn't have said this a few years ago. No, absolutely not. Because I didn't. It wouldn't have even occurred to me to ask the question: what am I doing? What am I consenting to? What am I complying with? What am I going along with? It didn't even register. But now to say that I'm consenting by just living here is like, oh, I don't think so.
No, but you're standing up and being here for people, aren't you? And that's where, we'll wait and see what else you've got to tell us, and if there's anything you could share.
Yeah, it was just a sentence that came out that I just went, well, hang on a minute, I'm not. None of us are consenting. I can't remember what it was about. I think you were saying that we consent to some system just by taking part or something. So yeah, the whole and again, I think we were perhaps on a little bit of a slant with understanding here. I was not saying I didn't support your the I do not consent candidate. It's I don't really care who stands for it. That's fine. And he sounds a lovely bloke, and the video, everything about him in the video looked like a genuinely nice, relaxed, authentic chap. I didn't see any problem with that at all. Reform was, I have a bit of a grudge against reform. When we needed them, when we needed opposition back in 2020, where were they? They were nowhere to be seen. We were in a void. There was nothing there for us. That's why Freedom Alliance was formed. That's why one or two others were formed, because there was just nobody representing the people at all. And Tice was actually calling for harsher tyranny, and so was Farage, and they were vying for being worse than the Tories.
And so was George Galloway, actually.
Yes, George Galloway as well. There were a lot of people who I felt.
But if they'd have been in the certain positions of the Prime Minister, they might not have done, and that's what we don't know.
Can't say that, can we? We can't say that. I mean, they might have been showing their true colours. Maybe they would have been worse. I don't know.
And we'll never know.
We'll never know. We don't have that crystal ball. But what I am struggling with is that none of them seem to have. I've seen no contrition. I've seen no recognition that they did anything wrong, or that there was any problem with their actions, or any lessons learned. I haven't seen this from any of them. Possibly Andrew Bridgen, but was that just because of the jab, or
Well, I would say what I've seen of and met of Andrew Bridgen and of Alan Graves yesterday and the other people at the meeting, they definitely seem to have come some way and are realising that things aren't right as to what's happening. But yeah, okay, carry on.
Okay, but what I'm saying is it's pretty fundamental. It's absolutely, you know, for me, it's the base layer of where you start from. Do you support, do you accept that people have inalienable rights upon which you may not trample? You know, if
And that's really where Alan Graves was coming from.
well, maybe he
We
was,
can use
Julie,
that
but I don't know.
terminology.
Reform hasn't shown this to me. They've shown no
Yeah,
record
but
that they
he
now
is
understand
not.
rights or anything.
Yeah,
Well,
but
great,
he
I'm
is
glad.
not. He is
I'm
not.
glad you can get
reformed.
behind him. I'm glad he's a decent bloke. I haven't met him,
Right.
can't say, but these are my concerns with reform,
Yeah.
and this is why I am not with reform. This is why I went with Freedom Alliance eventually, because I found them, and had I not found them, I would have started my own.
Right, Rachel's just put her hand up, so I'm assuming it's something to do with what you've just said. So if we just go to Rachel. No, it's still not unplugged. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt Lynn's flow, but when she's finished,
No,
I
all right.
I'm
Right.
interrupted now.
Okay. So Rachel, you say whatever you wanted to.
Yeah, so this is the thing, isn't it? Like you could say, well, this is what a lot of people do say. Oh, Andrew Bridgen, he had the jab, or he voted for da 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 da. You know, we are now 4 years on, and people have woken up at different times. And I was in the system. I was fully in the system for years and years and years. And I woke up. You know, it wasn't really till mid 2020 that I thought there's something wrong here. But I'd been putting my thing over my scarf over, sort of complying along with it. And then I'm like, no. So there comes a point, and are we going to, like, is there no redemption? Is there no
this is not what I'm
ability
saying. This,
for
oh
us
my
to-
God, this full moon energy, this energy of misunderstanding is just so bad.
No,
This
no,
is
no.
not what
But
I'm
can I just
saying.
complete what I'm saying, so I can complete, and that we are on a continuum, and people are waking up at different times. So just because you believed something a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, doesn't mean you can't have an awakening on the road to Damascus. You know, that's a very classical story of Paul on the road to Damascus. Was a Roman soldier who was killing the Christians, whose Jesus appeared to him, and he had a conversion literally like that, and we have to allow and hold the space for people to wake up. Alan Graves, he had the jabs, and then after the second one, he saw all his family falling ill, and he decided not, and his wife had 3, and his niece had blood clots, and her health has never been the same since. We're all waking up to the tyranny at different stages, and I don't think that we can eternally punish people because they didn't quite wake up as quickly as we did. We are where we are. People are now realizing the extent of the shit show. The PSYOP has been MK Ultra mind control PSYOP. It's a lot to break. And, I just don't think that we can keep beating people over the head because they didn't wake up as fast as we did. I really feel strongly about this.
Okay, thank you. Right, I'm going to go back to Lynn because I've noticed it's very nearly 2 o'clock. So, and I've got a client at 2:30, so I will have to go, but I might have to leave you. Yeah, okay, Lynn, carry on.
Okay, at no point have I said there's no redemption or anything like that. And I have said people are waking at different points and we have to be there ready to receive them. That's not at all what I'm saying. So let's put that one aside. What I am saying is that there is a base layer. Inalienable rights are absolutely fundamental. People were prepared to trample them. Now, Tice is one of them. And maybe he can be redeemed, and maybe Andrew Bridgen can be redeemed because he also was at one point prepared to trample them. What I haven't seen is a recognition that they even understand these rights exist and that they cannot go there. That's a point they cannot, that's a line they cannot cross. So we've had this learning, we've had this wakening up, Do they now understand what inalienable rights actually are and how important they are and how completely non-negotiable? It's like nicking someone's kidney. You can't nick their freedom. You can't nick their freedom to move around. It's that non-negotiable. Do they now get this? Now, I don't for this particular election, it's not actually that important. We just need a mayor to trash the system and say it's a complete, you know, we need to just castrate it. So for that particular for this particular election, it doesn't actually matter that much. But when you're talking about reform generally, and or TICE and who we can get behind, do these people now understand it? Because I've not seen contrition. I've not seen them going, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I'm so sorry, I wasn't there for you, wasn't standing up for you, we were wrong. I've seen nothing. I've seen
Yeah,
nothing.
but have you been with those people, Lynn? Physically?
I keep an eye out on Twitter and things. I mean, that's
No, but to
Absolutely.
Oh
This is
gosh,
the
yes,
point I was
absolutely.
gonna
I've
make.
been with these people. Of course I have. I went, you know, this is what I'm saying. It when I've seen reform, like in Stand in the Park or in the you know, at the counts, the grassroots people have been absolutely brilliant. God's sake, they tried to recruit me at one point. They were very awake. Some of them had more information on what was going on than I did. Some of them were even more down the QAnon stuff than I was comfortable with. So they were at different places. I get that, but you know, that said, they haven't asked for a new leader. They haven't said he's a bit of an establishment stooge. And can we not get rid of him and have somebody who's a little more respectful of inalienable rights, or can he at least make some sort of statement putting this straight, because it is an embarrassment. It's not just an embarrassment, it's actually I think it's fundamental. It's absolutely fundamental. If you either agree with inalienable rights or you don't, and that's pretty much a deal breaker for me. But for this election, I'm very happy that we've got a candidate and we don't have to bother. I think that's a very positive thing, and I think he probably is a very genuine person. I have no problem with him.
And yet hopefully we will bother to vote as well.
Oh yeah, there's either way, I'm not, you know, not sure which is the best option. I do not consent or a candidate, but
you have choice on that. And
yeah, exactly. It's a great choice to have. So that's what we should have. But
I'll come back to you in a bit, Rachel. Okay.
I know. Let Rachel go. I think I just got that message.
Right, Rachel.
Yeah, I personally think it's a mistake to view Reform Party as a pyramid with a leader who's in charge of everything. I didn't get that impression at all last night. I got the impression that they weren't particularly enamored with Richard Tice or the whole of the pyramid structure, that they were a collection of independents who'd come together under that umbrella. They were totally on it with common law rights, with everything that we've been discussing. There was a guy there who was totally on the page of Chris Coverdale and wanted to help me with my council tax. They were all anti-WEF. They were using the reform umbrella as a method of convenience to facilitate their uprising and their revolution. And I loved the energy in that room, and it definitely wasn't deferential to Tice, that none of them were particularly in support or in awe of him as their leader. They were just using the reform umbrella to allow them to be a more powerful force, in the same way that we had intended the Love Party. It wasn't anyone like, oh, I don't agree with Lynn Irving because she's our leader and da-da-da-da. We never intended it to be like that. We were a collection of independents who were coming together under an umbrella of liberation, opportunity, vitality, empowerment, of those values, within which there was no whip and everyone was free to do what they wanted, provided they were generally in alignment with those values. So I really learned a lot, and I really loved what was coming out of that meeting. And there definitely wasn't our leader Richard Tice, we have to obey. There was not that feeling at all. It's
I've never had that
the
with them.
opposite.
I've always
If anything, they were saying pretty much confirming what you're saying anyway. So
it's mine were. I mean, I met the reform lot in Yorkshire, and they were pretty pissed off with Tice.
Yeah.
At that point, where this was a by-election in 2021, I think, and they were pretty pissed off with him.
Yeah.
So that's fine. It's just, but like I say, that's the reason I didn't go with reform in the first place. I'd heard of them. I knew they existed. And then when I looked, there was Ty's blabbering on about, how we needed stricter lockdown, or we should have done it sooner, and blah, 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 and jumping on the, doing the virtue signaling rubbish. And nobody else seemed to be able to get, well, I mean, obviously nothing else was being reported, was it? It was only
Yeah.
those messages. But
So-
there are parties, Constitution
Yeah.
Party, Sovereign Party. There's lots of parties that are doing that.
But Lynn, where are you on the Nottinghamshire Police Commissioner?
Because they want you to stand for reform.
Or at least stand for independence. Where are you on that, Lynn, at all? Are you going to put
I thought we decided we weren't going to. This is because obviously this is new the last couple of days since you've met the your man, Alan. But before that, for those couple of days, I thought we'd gone for an I do not consent.
I thought on the police commissioner, I thought you were going to put yourself forward for Nottinghamshire.
Oh, I thought we were on the same basis, that it was £5,000 and a total.
He was asking last night if you would stand for reform.
What?
And we don't need
Alan.
you to stand for reform, because I'm asking, will you stand independently?
I
And
can't tell if you're pulling my plonker.
No, he said that, and I laughed because I said, no, I don't think you'll get Lynn to agree because she's not pro Richard Tice. At which point said, well, I'm not either. That's
and
how
that is
they-
the
how they
conversation.
feel.
Yeah, that is the conversation that happened, Lynn. And
Is it?
he'd be very happy to have you and to be able to promote you. But also, I know your views on Reform UK. So hopefully you can we've dropped a seed, and you can decide if you want to support it to grow in whatever way you wish to.
There's
Yeah.
still time because you've got till the 5th of April. And I'm super tempted to go for the police commissioner for Derbyshire actually again.
I would love to see that.
Just to throw a spanner in the works, because I've got so much footage that I could drop in there. Still got 5 days.
Yeah.
So anyway, we've dropped that seed with you, but he's very willing to help to support you in that role, whether you need to be under the label of Reform UK, because I'm going to be an agent at that count for him, and I am going to deliver some leaflets for him, because I want East Midlands Regional Mayor to hopefully elect him or do not consent and get this system change that we never wanted to have.
He's not for anyone who will disrupt the system. That's what he stands for. People who are they call him Spanner Man. People who will throw a spanner in the works of the system. That's absolutely what he's about.
So Rachel, did he say that he's going to the meeting next Tuesday up in Sheffield?
I think he is, yeah, with Andrew Bridgen.
I thought so. So, I mean, Lynn, either if you could have a phone call with him, if you'd be willing to, or perhaps come up to the meeting.
I would love to come up to the meeting. Let me just I've got to get over this before I say anything that I go, what the hell was I saying?
Yeah.
Because I don't, I wrote stuff down, but now I'm trying to think ad-libbing and I'm not doing so well. Probably wasn't doing very well anyway. But I think this has been, for me, it's been a very disrupting the system call, and that's okay, but I would very much like at some point to get back to regrowing the new, we've got a whole new system. It's a new spring, and there's so much good going on out here. I would love to see that. I want see how this chrysalis thing is going, and maybe get to see go and visit those sort of projects, and rather than again, is this a distraction? Is this flipping mayor and commission and everything? Is it a distraction to stop us rebuilding the new? It could well be, because it's definitely getting him, in the way a little bit. And we've got a currency here. We've got some good ideas here right now that we just do our own, and I just want them to be as irrelevant as possible. And now I can feel my head getting a bit confused, so I'm going to stop.
And we need to keep as grounded as we can with all this. And as I said in my comment earlier, we need to perhaps be within as well as whilst we're building this new system as well.
It's not an either or, it's a both and more and more. I don't see it as an either or. I think we're pattern interrupting the existing, and we're co-creating the new, and they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, and each of us will have different roles in all of those different aspects that will be unique to each individual. And when you think of what you're going through, Lynn, with the hemp things and other stuff that's happening in your life, and you've got your children and wider family, etc., we're all juggling lots of different things, and it's knowing which bit are we with at the moment. Anyway, I'm very mindful of quite often my client arrives early, so it's nearly 2:10. Is there anything else anyone would like to say before we finish? And we'll finish the recording before we finish altogether. So I don't think anyone else has got their hand up. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining and for listening to the recording. And please support us, even if it's just the sending your thoughts out in positive ways for the highest good, greatest benefits for all, liberation, opportunity, vitality, empowerment. Thank you.
Thanks for having
Well,
me.
I just want to say that I'm going to send links which will give more information about this gold back, because you need to know something about it.
Brilliant.
I'm not saying that this is the sort of permanent way forward with regard to currency. I just see it as probably a stopgap measure.
Yeah, and it'll be right for some people, but it might not be for others. So thank you, Roger, and we look forward to those links as well. Thank you very much. Okay. Right. Bye then, folks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.